So lesson 10, we're going to be talking about base and heights of triangles. We're going to use different bases and height pairs to find the area of those triangles. So we'll see that, and we talked about before, that as long as that base is perpendicular to the height, or the height is perpendicular to the base, then you're good to go with getting what you need to work with. So your I can statements are, I can identify corresponding pairs of base and height of any triangle. And when given information about a base of a triangle, I can identify and draw the corresponding height. Okay, so should be all set to go. Also in this part, you're going to see a link that you need to pull open GeoGebra, and it will have all the digital versions for you to work out the things that I show you on the screen. Okay, let's get into it. So looking at these here, one of the things that I would do on each of these, if we're trying to find the perpendicular heights, if you had these cut out in front of you, you could use an index card and easily do it. What you need to do is you've got to make that right angle off of a base. So like for this one here, if side A is the base, then I've got to come straight down to the highest point in this triangle to find that height. Same thing here. If I'm using B as my base, I actually have to slide over a little bit, right? And I actually got to come over, and I have got to make it so that my height, again, comes straight up from a perpendicular part of the base. And here it actually goes on the outside of the triangle. You could have done this one on the outside of the triangle. You just had to extend some lines. But here we have to, because the triangle doesn't have any right angles or a way for us to get to that opposite point. C is kind of the same way. I'm going to have to extend out the base a little bit. It doesn't really matter how much, does it? Yeah, because I'm just going to use whatever number goes with that base there. And then I need to drop down from the height. And boom, I've now got a height for this one as well. Okay. So if you opened up that link that I pasted in here at the beginning, you should be set with this to figure out what you need to do to find your height for each of these pieces. So go ahead and draw a line segment for each one and test it out on this particular part. And you can just stop at that part. You don't have to do anything else. All right, so if you're going to do a line segment for each of these, it shows the height. I'm just going to show you one possibility, because can't we do one for every one of the possible areas? Yeah, and when you're using that actual that link that I sent you, it'll be a lot easier. So like from here, again, I would do a right angle straight from that corner there. For this one here, it gets a little trickier. You're going to, again, look at what's going to take to make a right angle to that point. This one, again, for me, it's going to be easiest because I don't have the lines like you have. So I'm just going to draw my points. But again, remember, it doesn't matter which one you use as your base, as long as that you've gotten your height. And in fact, I actually did two of those wrong. Let me go back on them, because you were supposed to use the base they had. There's the base. All right. And from here, there we go. And if that's our base, we can actually use this back. It looks like it's a right angle. Let me check something here. I had that wrong. I had to even put something so I could see if I had a right angle base to it. Let's see, this one here. Let me hold up onto my screen. Of course, you can't see what I got on my screen, but yep, I can just use this height right here. For this one, I'm going to take and extend that line out. And now let me line up with my piece of paper that I'm using on the screen. Again, you guys can do it fairly easy because if you're using it like you should be able to just click on those grids and use that to help you figure it out. Okay, so your bases should look something like this with the height when you've gotten finished. All right, let's move on to our next part. So on the last part, it told us exactly which bases to use, but on this next one, you're going to get to choose the base, and really, it's going to be whatever one seems the best. And in this link still, you're going to see all 4 of these, but they are labeled individually. You can work on each one individually. So you need to look at each one and kind of figure out which is the base, which is the best height, which one's the best to use for each one of those there. When I go through and actually answer on these, you know, you don't have to necessarily agree with mine. You could use a different one, as long as, again, you're making what with that base and then the height off the base. Yeah, it should be a perpendicular line. Okay. All right, let's take a look and see what we could get here. I think for this one, you could either use this side. Oops, hang on a second. You could use this side for the base and then use this line for the height, or you could have flipped it and use this for the base and this for the height. I think either one works just fine there. Here, since I'm on graph, I would say that your best one's going to be here for a base. Again, I think it's just, it makes it, for me, makes it easier, because then that way I can use those grid lines to help me out. Okay. So then for B, I would have the height like this. So my height would be here. Same thing for this one. This is the one that's on the line. So I'm going to actually go from the point up here and use that point as the top of my height and use this side as my base. And for this one here, I'll probably do something similar, but I'm going to actually mark it on the inside. Again, the best base for each of these is to use that one that is the most logical. And when you're on graph paper, the one that's on the lines is going to be your most logical one to use as a base. A, you could have used either one, right? But B, C, and D, even though you could have made perpendicular lines otherwise, I think that these make the best possible ways, okay? All right, so regardless, should be able to find the area for each of these. And so you need to answer that question right now for each one. Okay, so for here, we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 for a base, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for a height. 9 times 5 is 45, but we have to take half of that. So half of 45 is 22 and 5/10. Okay. Over here, we have what for an area? Well, 8 by 11, which gives us 88, but we have to do half of that. So we've got 44 for an area there. For C, we have 18 by 1, 2, 3, 4, giving us 4, which gives us 72 altogether. Half of 72 is 36 square units. And for the final one, we've got 6 by 11, which gives us 66. And then obviously we cut that in half. So we have 33 there. So that's the area for each of those. Okay. All right. Once you look at this one final one here, this one's a little trickier, isn't it? What would you do for an area here? Yeah, well, it's difficult to see a base and a height on this one, isn't it? So for this one, you're going to have to think about a couple different things. You're going to have to think about how that perpendicular line is going to come off of there. And the other thing is, that's a perpendicular line, right? But that doesn't have nice convenient units to mark off, does it? And if we move off on some other pieces there, it's going to be pretty difficult as well. So give it a try, and I'll explain what I did here in a second. So the first thing I did was I made an entire rectangular shape to find out that total area, which gives me 144. My next step, find the area of each of the sections. So for this was 7 by 12, which gave me 84. Half of 84 is 42. Then I have 6 by 5, which gives me 30. Half of 30 is 15. And then 12 by 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 12 by 6 gives me 72. Half of 72 is 36. I then take those four numbers and subtract them out. Well, actually, add them first, which gets me 93. If I subtract 93, then I should have just the area of this triangle, right? 51 square units. And to me, that makes sense because it is larger than any of the three side parts. So it should be larger in total or in part than any of one of those parts. All right, so we talked about heights and bases, how we can use any base and have a height that's perpendicular off of it. Sometimes it's better to think about simply which one's going to be the best one. Even though we can find a bunch of different ones, it's best to look for the one that, especially if we've got graph or some other way to make right angles, we use that. So we got our ICANS done, the identifying corresponding pairs of bases and heights, and that we were able to identify and draw a corresponding height with whatever base. All right, woo, little long today. Thanks for watching.